Hi everybody, I'm DJ Sixsmith. You're watching The Sit Down. Hanging out today with Lauren E. Banks.
Yeah.
We got City on a Hill coming to Showtime on Sunday.
Yes,
How are you?
indeed. Thank you for having me. I am good. I am excited.
I bet you are.
I am full of smiles. It's great. Yeah.
You got to be hyped about this one. Your parents came to the set. This is a big one for you.
They were on set last weekend, actually.
Nice.
Because we had our premiere last weekend, and I had to work the day before the premiere, and so yeah, they got to town that day, and I brought them straight to set, and they had a ball. They watched the whole scene happen, and it was funny. My little brother fell asleep.
How old's your little brother?
He's 13.
Wow.
He just turned 14 this
Come
past
on,
week.
bro.
I know, but he's the baby of the family. But
That's
also,
way too old to be falling asleep on set.
Listen.
Not a good look for sis.
He's just like, because he started to act,
Okay.
actually, so he did a short film, or
Nice.
indie like student film. He's like, yeah, I mean, I've seen all of this before.
He's like, I got my indie
I was
thing.
like, oh yeah, you shot in the studio?
You shot with Showtime?
Yeah.
Kevin Bacon? He's like,
yeah.
I've seen it all.
He fell asleep. My stepmother was, she had a ball, and my father was super fascinated.
I'm sure he was, because they've seen you through the whole process here.
Yeah.
And I was telling you before, we had Mark O'Brien here. This has been a long process in terms of just getting this show up there.
Seriously, we shot this pilot.
Yeah,
because I jumped in with the pilot.
Okay.
Like 4 days before the pilot.
So that's like early 2018?
This was, December 2017.
Okay, so December 2017.
Yeah,
it is now 2019.
Isn't that
December
something?
2019.
Yes, literally. So that first episode that you see, we shot that 2 years ago.
Wow. Yeah,
and then we did some reshoots to really bring it to the full esteem that we thought the show existed. And the great thing about Showtime and everybody on our show is like they really work to make sure we're doing it right, if you will. There's no kind of like, oh, it's done, it's in the can, so what? It's like, oh, no, we're kind of perfecting the work as we as artists perfect our craft, which is, it feels really good to be a part of, a supportive system like that.
Absolutely. And you got to get this one right, too, because Boston, 90s, corruption, police, some violence going on. You can't get this one wrong.
Yeah, you can't skim over any details in that regard. And especially because we're doing historical fiction, you know what I mean? So, whereas some things are fictitious, a lot of it is steeped in real life events.
Absolutely.
And people were there, and I've spoken to some of those people in Boston who were there for some of the things you'll see in our show. I know that they feel strongly about what happened. They feel strongly about their city. Those are some proud people.
Absolutely. They got a lot of pride in Boston.
Lots of pride in Boston. As I understand, I'm from Durham, North Carolina. We got a lot of pride in Durham. But yeah, so after that was a part of my research and coming to this role, and after meeting with a lot of those people, I felt a great responsibility to do right by them in their city.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So what was the most fascinating thing to you about just this whole time in Boston in the 90s and the show in general?
Well, let's see. The most fascinating. It's interesting. In 1992, they were going through a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like Boston was the city was at the lowest of its low.
Yeah. And
therefore the people were at the lowest of their lows, and they were in an extreme state of the need for survival. So human impulses were firing off, right? And people were sticking to their tribes. Our show deals with like this code of silence that is permeating throughout Boston. And I think that code of silence is what I found most fascinating in terms of how people stick to their select groups and tribes because they have to out of a need to survive. I think it's a very human instinct, right, to do that. But then what is more fascinating than that is how people with such like polarizing different perspectives come together to make this thing called the Boston Miracle happen. And it's not that you have to have the same beliefs or be from the same religious backgrounds or even have the same life experiences to galvanize around a common goal. And you can actually attack them like you're stronger with your diversity. You can attack them with your different perspectives and your different knowledge and understanding, and then that makes what you're doing all the more richer and therefore successful.
Yeah. And we need that to be successful.
Yes.
Because if we're just alone in our little echo chambers,
homogenous little landscape,
it's just not going to work out.
Yeah, it's just not. That's not even America.
No, definitely not America.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
So you've been on a few different sets. What was it about this squad and this set that was a little bit different from everybody else?
Well, that's interesting. I think, in other sets that I've ventured into, there are a lot of people who are also starting out, where I am just now starting out. Whereas this set, everything from our DP, like Joe Collins, our DP, to our showrunner, Tom Fontana, and everybody in the cast had this overwhelming like resume.
Some veterans in the industry.
All veterans, all around me. And I was like, okay, and you know, they trusted me with Siobhan.
Yeah.
And I think that was the biggest difference that kind of stood out, but then made all the difference in terms of what we're creating and how much fun I've had learning from them.
What are some of the lessons you've learned?
So for example, I was just talking about this, like Kevin, we talked about, one of the first conversations he and I had was like, he's like, you know, we don't really spend a lot of time acting. Like, you know,
it's a lot of sitting around and waiting, right?
A lot of time in process.
Yeah.
Right. And which also means you have to know, like, you have to be ready to do TV. Like, I learned an extreme amount about what it is to shoot a full series. Prior to this, I did a lot of guest stars,
right.
And that's cool. And I showed up, and I had a week to prepare,
right.
and I shot, and 4 hours later we were done.
And I'm done. That's it. Yeah.
Whereas this is like, we're shooting this at this rate. You know, we have maybe 2 takes, and that's all you have, but or more if you have the luxury of that day to do your thing. And so I think the biggest lesson I learned is just kind of how to condition my body to be ready to execute at that high level, right? Because be in process and be totally mind, body, spirit, like ready to do the work at that rate. Yeah. And Kevin, you can just tell that he is that he has that vessel. Like, he's like, yeah, this is a lot of lines for a 60-year-old, but like, but also to that point, like, he has at least, you know, 3 decades of experience.
Absolutely.
And so he comes in with this ease within his instrument, and then he is on and ready to go when we're working. So yeah.
And that's a difficult thing when you're having 12, 14, 16-hour days, and you shot something hours ago, and it's like, all right, you got 2 takes, you got to nail it here.
Because that's what's going to show up on the screen. Yeah, same with Aldous, because he was a child actor. So in the many ways, he has that same, you know, level of experience because of the breadth of his experience starting out as a child, and he's learned on the fly. Like, he didn't train formally either, he says. So everything he learned, he and his brother learned, were on the set. So yeah.
That's kind of the best way to learn too, because of course you can get really technical with things, and you've had your technical experience with everything at Yale, but like just doing it trial by fire, like your first show, like you're gonna make some mistakes, you're gonna learn some stuff.
Yes.
It's a nice experience to have.
It's a great experience. I'm like, okay, season 1, we did it. We did it.
Yeah.
Now I'll see what actually transpires, and then I'm like, okay, so now I know how to make this happen if we get a season 2.
What surprised you the most about the whole experience?
What surprised me the most? I think I was really surprised from day one with how inclusive everyone was of what I had to bring to the table. Because it's clear, it's like, oh, she booked this role 6 months out of school, right? Like, I am so, you know, totally the baby, if you will, but nobody treated me like that. And nobody, you know, was there, obviously definitely not holding my hand, but no one, they valued my collaboration. And Tom Fontana was really wonderful, and Chuck McLean, who created our show, was really wonderful in allowing me to weigh in on Siobhan and how I saw her. And it just felt like a team sport in that regard.
That's the best way to do it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, you know, and it's like, ideally you want it to be that way, and especially for myself on the outside looking in, it's like, oh, it's cool, like I'm doing it with my friends when we're in drama club and stuff like that, right? And like high school, we're doing our thing, college is all collaborative, but something about the industry projects that it won't continue to be that.
Right.
And I think a lot of people have that experience, but that was nothing like my experience doing the show.
That's
which
good to
was
hear.
Surprising. And then I was like, yes. And then I was like, let's do it.
Like, this is a good one to start off with 6 months out.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the fact that it's only been, you know, a very short amount of time since being in school.
Yeah.
What's it been like for you just from a life perspective in terms of where you were at Yale compared to where you're at right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm working just as hard.
I'm sure, yeah.
Like, I think I thought, oh, okay, here's drama school. It can't get any worse than this.
And
like,
then you graduate.
And then you graduate, and then you book a series, and you're doing 10 episodes, and you're like, cool, we're still doing 16-hour days. You know what I mean? And still working at that level, but yeah, in terms of the biggest difference is what you asked. I mean, I think the biggest difference is that I'm getting paid.
It's a nice thing, right? It's a
for
game changer.
all of those hours.
Yeah, as it should be.
That's a major game changer,
Yes.
and I think, I think that's probably there. It's interesting. It hasn't really been a big difference. My collaborators are extremely fun to work with. I love my classmates at Yale. Like we had a great ensemble, and to know that I can, go from there to being a part of this ensemble and still have those same experiences is pretty great.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No doubt about it. So speaking of Yale, it's a very small crew of people that get the opportunity to get that MFA.
I know. Yeah, for sure.
So what was the best part of that experience overall for you?
The best part is that I found really great people, like other art, like outside of acting, directors and playwrights and other people that I look forward to creating work with on the next level, if you will, at Yale, that I wouldn't have been able to come across.
Right.
For example, one of my best friends from school, her name is Tori Sampson, and she's a playwright, and she's an excellent playwright. And so I was in like all of her plays when I was at Yale, and oddly enough, she also grew up in North Carolina. She also attended Howard for a little bit.
Oh, wow.
We both played AAU basketball, like, you know what I mean? All of these things, and we had never met each other until getting to Yale, you know what I mean? So it had a way of bringing like minds together. And so that was like, she and there are a lot of other collaborators that I could like list off, but that's the special part about going to a conservatory. Yes, you get to concentrate on your craft, and then you get to pair yourself with like-minded individuals and grow together.
And get to see where they end up a few years down the road.
Absolutely.
That'd be a cool thing.
Yeah, it's a really great thing. And the teachers at my teachers I just admire and adore. So yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you mentioned hoops. I mean, sports was a big part of your life growing up.
Yeah.
You were a baller. You were a great track athlete as well.
Yeah.
So just describe to me how great you were at these
okay.
races.
Well,
let's hear it.
If you don't mind.
Let's get a little humble brag.
Do we have enough time for that?
We may need a whole hour.
No, it was, I came to like the first sport I participated in was marathons. I ran a 5K with my dad when I was 10.
Wow.
And it was crazy experience. And I learned a lot, like about running, of course, but then I still reference lessons from that experience, like throughout my whole life. And then after that is when I started running track because it went so well. Both of my parents were like, cool. Like they signed me up for track like the next day.
That's a smart move.
It's like, what 10-year-old runs a whole 5K for the first time
Seriously?
and sprints the end of the race? It's so funny because my mom has like a picture of me crossing the finish line.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I have my zigzag braids because I thought that would influence my fast ability.
You thought you'd go a little quicker.
Yeah.
I like it.
Lightning bolts.
Absolutely. 10 years old, you're like, this is a definite
This is the
thing.
thing. I got my Nikes on. I'm ready. And then I played basketball and ran track throughout my high school experience and cross country. But it was like sports around the calendar year.
Right. Yeah, it never stopped.
Yeah, no.
So
now I don't do as many sports.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did the whole acting thing come into the picture when that was the focal point for such a long time?
Yeah, well, acting was first, and then in middle school, and then sports came up around 7th grade is when you could participate in sports. And then I was like, okay, cool, I'm done. Like I'm gonna go, I'm gonna play basketball, I'm good at this, all of my friends are doing it, and the 6 of us who were in auditorium was like, oh, it's not as fun as playing sports. At that time, my teacher told me, Kenneth Warmack is his name, at Shepherd Middle School. I think he's still at Shepherd, actually, in Durham. And he told me, Lauren, you're throwing away your gift. And I looked at him like, I felt guilty, but I had no clue what he was talking about at that age. And then I went to high school at Hillside High School, and then I was like, oh, I had an experience where I found out what my gift was. And then for the next few years, I was like playing basketball, running track, and doing drama.
Just trying to do everything.
Yeah, literally just all the things I felt like I was good at, and I was having fun doing, I wanted to do it. And then I eventually, after my junior year, got focused on acting. Specifically.
I think it's great you did all those things because you think about kids today, like if they want to be an actor, they're doing that from age 7. They're doing nothing else. Or even sports, they're just playing basketball.
Yeah, and they burn out sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or they don't find the love in it. It's not happening organically, for them. And so I really do appreciate that I had a vast, like a lot of experience.
I agree.
A vast amount of experiences, because all of those things are necessary for the work I do now.
Right.
All of them.
Yeah, because the marathon analogy just works perfectly with this industry. You know?
It is that. Yeah.
And you have the physical experience to be like, yeah, at 10 years old, I was able to do this and push my body. This is going to challenge me in different ways.
Totally. And all through my like drama, like what I would say was really challenging experience, but like I had this athletic engine under that the whole time. And then I think also for the work, it's like you receive a lot of rejection, a lot of losses, if you will, you know, but as an athlete, you know, you learn how to lose. And you learn that there is value in not getting the job, if you will, or not winning. But, you know, you also learn how to find the small wins and things, and to keep pushing. Yeah, so.
And that's really important too, because in our society we focus so much on the wins, and sometimes we're not prepared to deal with those losses.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you can have somebody who's just done everything right, who's winning all the time, and then the first thing happens, they lose, and they're like, how do I deal with this?
Yeah, completely undone.
Whereas you're like, you know what? I've lost games before. This is my athlete mentality. I'm gonna be good.
Yeah, I will survive.
I will survive.
And there's another game to play.
Exactly.
And what I'm learning now, I'm like doing MMA, like Muay Thai rather.
Oh, nice.
And it's the same thing. Like you can think about that hit that you just got, and like, wow, that really hurt. Or you can get ready and defend yourself
punch back,
because it's gonna come again. And punch back, exactly.
You can't just keep getting hit in the same place and not do anything about it. That won't work out for you.
It won't work. Nope.
So you mentioned a couple of different guest spots you did prior to this. You did Maniac. You're up there. It's you, Jonah Hill, hanging out. That must have been pretty cool.
It was so cool. It was crazy. I think that role came, I auditioned for it within like a couple days or maybe I got the script for it within a couple days of shooting. And that particular scene is just like all me and law, legal jargon and Jonah Hill, you know, totally in character, and then Cary Fukunaga directing, and he's building as he goes, like he's a DP and a director, and watching all of these things happen around me, and Patrick Somerville is who wrote that. Anyway, it was so much fun. It was like, first of all, those are dream roles that he and Emma portrayed, and not knowing what that landscape was, because I couldn't read all the characters because they were so, all of the scripts, because they were so hush-hush about it, just kind of like diving in. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they're excellent actors, and I admire both of them so much. Yeah, and the character acting is something that I really admire and look forward to.
It's a cool thing.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
You think about when you're coming up and you're like, oh, I want to be in this big movie, big show, but those character parts, and Kevin Bacon has made a great part of his career doing those things.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I know.
Those are the ones that really push you to the next level.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of pushing in sports and stuff, it's just like, yeah, those kind of challenges are super appetizing, and yeah, you find, I just find some parts of myself that I didn't know that I had, and I learned so many things about like my instrument and what I'm capable of when I get to play, parts that really challenge me, that are so far from me.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So who are some other people in the industry that you look to and you're like, I like what that person's doing right now, or this person's really doing some interesting stuff? Oh
yeah, for sure. Like I was just interviewing after Tessa Thompson, for example. I really admired the trajectory of her career.
Totally.
Alicia Vikander, she's doing dope stuff. Going from you know, Oscar dramas to like playing Tomb Raider, right? Like that kind of range for an actor, and especially a woman actor, is so, you don't see it a lot, but it's the kind of career that I look forward to, you know, whereas like, yes, I can play Siobhan and somebody who's close to me in some ways, and then I can go play this character role that I never experienced, and then I can totally embrace all of my athletic background as Tomb Raider, you know, which is a lot of fun. I admire a lot of people, a lot of acting. Like I watch movies like day and night.
Yeah, what have you watched recently?
The last movie I watched was The Last Black Man in San Francisco. What was that about? Oh my God, it's like, it's about gentrification in San Francisco, and it is based on a true story in many ways, or true experiences of a young man, but I just thought it was so, the landscape is so dreamy and fantastical, and yet we're dealing with something that's like right now. Right? And so the acting in it is really extraordinary. It's one of the guys who's in it is Jonathan Majors, and we went to school together.
Nice.
He was a year ahead of me in school.
There you go.
Yeah. And we pushed each other. Yeah, for sure.
There's so much good stuff out there now too.
Yeah.
You know, and I think
there's a lot of good stuff.
And I think this show will be added to that list.
Yes, I hope so.
Yeah, because it's like I was telling Mark the other day. It's like people are gonna look at it. And it's like Damon Affleck, check.
Yes.
Kevin Bacon, check, and then it's like all these other people like you that we get to see for the first time. And oh, by the way, crazy stuff going on in Boston.
Right. You know, exactly.
That's how you cut through, because there's great shows out there that may not cut through.
Totally.
That's the challenge.
I agree with you.
I feel like Showtime does a good job pushing this thing through.
Yeah.
And you need that in this world.
They seem to really believe in it, which is really great.
Definitely.
Yeah, and we all feel super supportive. So
Sunday. Yeah. When people check it out Sunday night. What are the big
9
things?
p.m.
9 p.m. Make sure you get there. What are the big things you want people to think when they're checking it out for the first time?
Well, I think the thing I want people to think about is that the show is called City on a Hill, right? So we're laying the landscape for this city that is Boston, and I think the pilot does a great job of taking a deep dive into the heart of like some of the issues, be it crime and robbery and stuff like that. And then I hope that they look forward to how we explode out from that and really follow these characters. Like it is definitely a lot of action, and there's also a character piece. And starting with Kevin and Aldis's characters and how they go head to head, and then knowing that Amanda Clayton's character of the Ryan family, and Jill Hennessy and my characters, the women, right, on the show, like none of the women are just like wives, for example.
No.
Like there's a lot of complexity that comes in this, and I hope people know to look forward to that, you know.
I'm definitely looking forward to that. We need complexity and depth because that's real life in people.
Yes, for sure.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Well, Lauren, it's been an absolute pleasure.
So nice to meet you,
Thank
DJ.
you very much.
Thank you for having
City
me.
on a Hill, Sunday night, 9 p.m. Check it out on Showtime. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time here on The Sit Down.